What's up? Welcome to episode 10 of Brewing Through the Multiverse. I'm your host, Mike.
And I'm Joel.
How we doing today, man?
Crisp one. I'm doing all
Yeah.
right. Ready for looking forward to the weekend. Trying to actually set up Commander tomorrow. Are you free?
Ooh, I am free tomorrow. You don't
See,
have
look at
work?
this. No,
Or
we
are you
do have
doing it
work, but
after?
yeah, after work, yeah. See,
Oh,
everyone,
okay.
this is the premium content you come here for. We're making Commander games happen on the stream.
Alive right here. Yeah, and we ended up doing two spontaneous games this weekend.
Yeah, it was
I know,
fantastic.
the last episode we were saying we wanted to play more, and I mean, since that episode, we've had two big sessions.
Yeah,
It
so
was nice.
we're making
Uh,
it true on our resolutions here.
Absolutely. Strong start. But I got a new beer. Well, not the new beer. This is actually what I cracked the first time. 3 times 3. It was so good. I just wanted it again today. A nice triple to get it going.
Do you ever call it 9?
Yeah, it would be, right?
I
It
like
is
that momentary
9%.
pause and then the realization of how terrible it was.
It's good math. That's good math. Well, you got anything over there to drink?
No, I partake in other fine substances, so so that YouTube doesn't demonetize us. We'll leave it at that.
There we go. I like it. All right, man. Well, listen, let's talk about our commander games because we did 2 days. It was the day right before New Year's and then the day
Yeah, it was the
after, right?
Friday and then Monday. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the first day was me, you, Mark, and Joey. And we got 6 or 7 games in.
I feel like in general lately we've been averaging a solid 6 games per session. I feel like that's sped up a lot by the Rakdos decks that we have in our pod. Just a lot of
Yeah.
group slug going on.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't really combo off. We play very aggressively. There's always damage happening. So it's a good way to get a lot of games in.
You got to debut one of the new decks that you were excited about.
Yeah, that was the first time playing it. I was very excited. I was tinkering it. It is Gil Wayne with 2 commas in there. Sorry.
2 commas in there.
We're going with it.
Professional.
So it played exactly as I would like it. I'm going to go see what that is. Hold on one second. All right. My dog was just trying to barrel through the door. I don't know what that was about.
He wanted to hear about Magic.
All right. So I played Gil Wayne. It was supposed to be getting creatures out. So what Gil Wayne does, let's start with that, is it's a 2/3 for 3 mana. When it or another non-token enters the battlefield, you can give it a roll token, sorcerer token, or monster token. I built the deck thinking I'd be giving out monster tokens. It ended up the royal tokens are definitely where it's at.
Yeah, I just feel like the ward is such. I mean, obviously, ward 1 isn't backbreaking, but it's just enough to put people off. When you're anguished on making costs 4 instead of 3 now, that changes the math a lot. I feel over time.
Yeah, and it still gets the 1/1 pump like the roll. So that's definitely where I ended up going. But as I was casting the creatures, I realized that there's a lot of ways to use those little auras without having a ton of auras in the deck. I still have them in there to trigger stuff, but I mean, just a lot of the stuff was using it. So there's some cards I want to highlight that are all from either Ixalan or Wilds that work out perfectly with this.
Okay.
Kutzil Malamet Exemplar is a 1 green white 3/3. Your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. That was so useful because my board is kind of small and I am trying to protect it. And when I know I have free range on my turn to not have any weird blockings or, battle tricks, it's nice. But it also says when 1 or more creatures I control, each with power greater than its base power, deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So ultimately, if its power is higher than the base, draw. And if everything's coming in with those auras on it, everything's letting me draw a card. So for the 3 mana, a creature that lets me draw cards and protects me my whole turn, I thought this card was absolutely fantastic. But it's really actually a 4/4 because it's going to get the royal token on it. So just nice. I was so impressed.
Yeah, I could say as somebody that was sitting on the other side of the table, I think I even tried to cast something or asked about something, and not being able to cast things on your turn is a pretty big issue.
Yeah. Yeah, even the simple stuff of like, I'll just wait until the end of that person's turn to draw a card. And now suddenly it gets to the end of the turn and you're like, oh, I can't. Damn it. So I like that one. Another one from Ixalan was Sovereign Akanek Aho.
Sure.
It's 2 green, white, 3/4. It already has Ward 2. And it says, when Sovereign attacks, for each creature you control with power greater than that creature's base power, which would be everything if it has the roll token on it, put a number of 1/1 counters onto that creature equal to the difference. And it kind of scales exponentially. So, if it's just 1 extra, you put a 1/1 counter. But the next time it attacks, it'll put 2. And it's a great way to build my board state without having to invest any resources in it. It's just a creature that I wanted to play anyway that already has Ward 2 will just start pumping everything up. It played in exactly as I wanted, and I love that card.
Do you think that the Coven mechanic has any role in your deck? Like, I know that you upgraded a precon. Did anything with Coven interest you, or do you feel like that would not be necessary?
I'm sure it would. My problem is I've always overlooked Coven. I've never used it or played with it, so I'm unfamiliar with the cards. Are there any cards that you know of that you might recommend?
Not off the top of my, I mean, I don't know. Off the top of my head every Coven card, but I do know that I was looking at the Coven counters deck, the precon for like a little bit, not too seriously because it's ultimately cheaper to buy the cards individually than it is to buy the deck. But I just figured that. I mean, at the beginning of the face commander from that deck is Lenore. I don't know. Autumn Sovereign. 4 mana, 2 in Selesnya, 0/4 with Coven, which is at the beginning of combat on your turn. Put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature you control. Then if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, draw a card. So just like, generic kind of card draw, which I guess you don't really need since you're in green. Like, you don't need that kind of specific. But I just thought that was neat.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense because everything is coming in with different stuff, and I can control it. I do have other auras to be, if let's say I have a few 3/2s out or 3/3s, throw an aura on, get that Coven going. So I'll give it a Scryfall. I'll see what kind of Coven cards there are.
Yeah, one more. The Stalwart Pathlighter, which is 2 and a white for a 3/1 with Vigilance. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, creatures you control gain indestructible to the end of the turn. And I feel like if you're trying to smack people with your tokens,
that's
or
really
not tokens,
nice.
Your enchanted creatures, that'd be nice.
Right. Yeah. Like, so if I have Sovereign out, now there's no reason for me not to swing and give everything all of its +1/+1s. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make room for that for sure. Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely look into the Coven mechanic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call. And those are the 2 colors that it would be the strongest in too. So there's got to be something hiding in there for me.
I'm sure. That's a set I missed completely, by the way. Like, going back to that, I'm pretty sure wasn't that the Midnight Hunt, or I can't remember if it was Midnight Hunt or what the hell is the other one. I'm pretty sure it was Midnight Hunt though. But yeah,
Crimson
that
Vow, the other
set,
one, right?
Crimson Vow, yeah, completely missed those sets. I mean, I'm vaguely familiar with Crimson Vow because of like the Edgar Markov kind of like Wedding Ring and Wedding Invitation and things like that, but Midnight Hunt just completely flew over my head.
Yeah. I guess I played it. That's a time that I was just drafting a lot, so I didn't shove that into any of the standards. But they were okay sets. Troy loves them. Troy swears by them, but I wasn't really putting it into any sort of constructed format at that time.
Did you like the quicker cadence of releases with those two? How they were like only a month apart. I feel like that personally for me almost, and this is coming from somebody that last episode just said I like the frequency of releases as it is. That was a little too quick for me because I really didn't get enough time to marinate from one to the next, to consider like what I enjoyed. So I ended up just kind of like bundling them and then forgetting them altogether.
Yeah, I agree. I do like. I'm not complaining about it. If they're gonna, send them out like the chocolates at that I Love Lucy factory, keep them coming.
Yeah.
But I would like to simmer on a set a little bit and really enjoy it. I feel like I could still be playing, Thrones, not Thrones, Wilds, in Ixalan's house. So I don't mind waiting, but I also don't mind if they're releasing it, frequently.
Hmm.
Just as long as they're releasing it, I guess, beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah.
Us junkies.
We need our fix.
Yeah. The last card that really outdid itself was actually the main commander in the precon, which is Elevere of the Wild Court, which is 2 green white, 4/4. When Elevere enters the battlefield or attacks, create a virtuous roll token attached to target creature I control. And it'll have +1/+1 for the number of enchantments on the battlefield, which can definitely add up. And then whenever an enchanted creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So this is just another thing of, if I have any of these enchantments on and I hit, I draw cards. And the redundancy of all of these cards doing similar things, but also working together, they're almost like the guardians or like the pillars of my deck, where everything else was happening around these cards. And I really enjoyed it. It felt great. It felt sturdy. I was always drawing cards and dealing damage, and nothing is that big, but I was definitely affecting the board and casting a lot. I just feel like it wasn't super powerful, but it let me play a lot of Magic for a little bit of, value and resource. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
That's awesome. And we were also making the joke that it's not a go wide deck or a go tall deck. It's like a go medium kind of deck.
Yeah. It's just
like 5 creatures
nice and
out, but
average.
they're all big enough where like it's not favorable to swing, but not scary enough where it like draws hate.
Yeah. 5 might be average, but I'm shooting for 6 or 7, So, yeah, so that was the first game. It was great playing, but we had a lot more. So let's just talk about, everything else that was going on. I don't know if you want to go in terms of the first day, second day, or just kind of lump it all up to this.
I think we just lump it all together as things come out. Because actually, the one thing that I wanted to point out is that on Monday we ended up playing with our friend Keldon, and he's not usually a part of our pod, but over the years he's someone that always comes through. And I just want to say that it is very nice to get a different kind of player in there. Not a different kind of player, but like a different player, because it's just a whole new variety of decks to see. And I'm somebody that like really enjoys, the variety of just seeing what people like brew and come up with and whatnot. Because when you play with the same pod, like it's good to get that kind of social atmosphere down 100%. But everyone, you would know what decks to expect. You kind of, in general, see how like the game plan is gonna go, and I just like that variety a lot. And then specifically, a deck that Keldon played that I was very impressed with was his Patron of the Moon mono blue deck, which I find to be so cool. And I like it for a couple of reasons. The first is that it's a sub 1,000 deck on EDH Rec, so that's pretty cool. That it's so easy to want to build like the common popular one. So to find kind of like this more on the more obscure side commander is awesome. And then just like the constraints of working with a Moonfolk offering 7 mana 5/4 with flying, and to make it work with like making all the illusions off of Moloku, the Clouded Mirror was great. That ended up changing the math, and cycling through all of his lands to just do different things was very cool. So kudos to Keldon for playing that.
Yeah, Yeah, that deck is fantastic, and it's so budget. That's the thing about Keldon is he's very much a budget player. A lot of his decks are normally $50 or under, but he's good enough of a player to where you very rarely feel it because he's always keeping up, and he definitely took some of the wins. Marin is the opposite. I mean,
Yeah.
so he has a completely foiled out and altered Marin deck that is something else, and I'm sure it'll come up in conversation. But as I say, he's a budget player. I want people to know too that he can flex hard. So
Oh yeah. So yeah, actually, he inspired me. I think my next, I always am brewing something or another. I think the next brew that I really want to do is something that's sub 1,000 decks, just to kind of see what's out there and maybe do a monocolor deck. Because I am honestly a big fan of monocolor decks. I find it's interesting to try to fulfill all of like the usual slots of card draw and ramp and whatnot in like colors that don't normally have access to it. So you kind of like dig deep for different, tech to make it work. So I was looking at monocolor sub thousands for my next like brew.
do you have any ideas or any leads?
I do. I did find one that looks interesting to me. I want to look into it more before I commit to talking about it, but I definitely have one on deck, and I will say the color that I'm looking at a mono black currently.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
my favorite when I go monocolored decks, I like, if possible, to take as many non-staple cards of that color, and find different avenues for it. So, like if it's a all blue deck, obviously you want to put all the best counter spells, all the cyclonic rifts and all this stuff. I like if you end up not putting all the staples in and finding all of these other ways of using that color to do what you're trying to do. So like my example is my Massacre Girl deck. When I first put it together, it had a lot of the black in it, but since then I've taken it out and it's actually there's dogs running in my yard. So many dogs. My God.
Dogs everywhere.
Crazy. But I ended up making it an artifact deck where actually Karn is kind of my secret commander in there, and it wants to do all artifact stuff with weird artifacts. And it's nice to just see how flexible colors can be sometimes and do things that I know black works with artifacts, but it's not the go-to option in Commander if you're trying to build a black deck.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what you do with the black.
Yeah, you'll see. It'll be a good time. It seems. I don't want to give any more information away. We'll maybe talk about it when I have
okay.
when I have a
Fair
list
enough.
together. Yeah.
Fair enough. So while we have Keldon on the list here, I do want to mention the one card that I learned that I actually don't like. One card that I want to say is trash is Grave Pact. So he wasn't the only one who cast it. He cast it in Marin. He used Spore Frog, to sack it, make sure no damage happens. Marin brings it back, sack it. Then he has this protection fog with Spore Frog. But you had also cast it in your zombie stack, right?
No, it's my Orzhov Aristocrats.
Okay, and that was just brutal. And it's one of those things where, I mean, that changes the whole pace of the game. So I'm half joking when I say I hate it, but afterwards, I had to put a Band-Aid on the Grave Pact hurt. So.
I mean, what's wrong with looping Fleshbag Marauders?
Yeah, nice 2 triggers. You cast your commander for 9 mana, and then someone else kills it while getting advantage. It's fantastic.
Always a good time. I'm glad I retooled it because the first go around it was like more generic aristocrats, but now I've leaned into the just like the sacrifice abuse, just more sacrificing effects and a little bit more graveyard recursion.
Do you have that 5 mana Keldheim black creature Tegrid?
Yes.
Do you have Tegrid in it? Okay.
Tegrid is in there. Of course, you can't not have Tegrid in there. I mean, I considered if I didn't love Orzhov as a color pair, I probably would have made just a Tegra deck itself, but I like specifically wanted it to be Orzhov, so
That's fair.
yeah,
Thank
next.
God.
But she's in there. She'll make an appearance eventually.
All right, cool. Yeah, that's scary. I have her in Massacre Girl too, but I kind of feel bad that she's in there. Maybe I'll cast her for the other side. I don't know. She's just so mean.
No, just do it.
All right, fine. Talking to mean decks, the Precon from 40K that Mark was playing,
Oh, Tyranids.
dude, Tyranids was out of control. I was so impressed with that deck. And he played it 3 times at least that we saw. And
Yeah, a minimum.
every time. Crazy.
Yeah, honestly, like I said before, the Universes Beyond Commander decks are all very well built and very powerful out of the box. Tyranids ends up becoming a problem very quickly, almost every time. It's interesting because I heard when they originally had come out that people were always saying that the Necron deck was the one that tended to be, the Necron deck was the one that tended to be like the powerhouse or whatnot, and I could kind of see that with like the Graveyard synergy. But having gotten the Necron deck myself, I did not think it was as board heavy as the Tyranids always seem to be, because the Tyranids were keeping up with like other, non-precons. You know what I mean? Like no one else was playing a precon, and I didn't feel like it was any weaker than any other deck that was there.
Keeping up, I mean, it was kind of leading it. He had tokens on big creatures before anyone else really had a board state every time. And every time it would get 6 counters on something, and then that creature would fight something, and then it would deal damage to something. So it wasn't just a big board state, but it was a big board state that was fighting and destroying ours. It was like a swarm or something, But
yeah, like a Tyranid swarm.
like a Tyranid swarm. But when we were playing, Keldon had cast the All Will Be One, and we realized that deck, if you are to put any card into the new Tyranid Precon deck,
oh yeah, All Will Be One is gross.
Because there was that one turn where he put 12 counters down on his creatures, and if that was out, that would just be 12 damage divided as he chooses to whatever he wants while growing his creatures. That's scary synergy.
I have to say also, Lucia Kane is just whatever Lucia Kane, like that's not even the face commander. That thing is out of control. The doubling, and then Ravenous is such a good effect because you can dump your mana. You get 2 copies of it if his commander's out. He gets to draw cards from the Ravenous trigger. He has more cards to cast the next turn. You're in green, so you could draw cards. You're in blue, so you could draw cards. It's just intense.
Yeah. I was very impressed with that. And he seems to be loving to pilot that deck too, so that's good. It's nice when you really enjoy the deck that you're playing. All right. Protection Racket was a card that Mark was actually really pumped about. And I do want to highlight that card and say, if you're not running Protection Racket, you should be running it. It's better than Black Market Connections. It's better than Black Market Connections.
I don't know about that. Having played, you saw how much. All right, go on. Finish your thought.
I said that just to bother you. It's not better than Black Market Connections.
Yeah, it was like,
but it's close.
Hot take of 2024. 4 days in.
But okay, so Protection Racket is 2 and a black, so it's a 3 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, repeat the following process for each of your opponents in turn order. Reveal the top card of your library. That player may pay life equal to that card's mana value. If they do, exile it, otherwise put it into your hand. So for 3 mana every turn, you have 3 opportunities to either get a card in hand or deal damage to an opponent. The damage adds up so quickly because they'll take 3 damage, no problem. They'll take 4 damage. Sometimes they'll even take 5 or 6 because that means it's a good card that they know is going to your hand and they don't want to be responsible for that. So the damage gets out of control. And if it's a land, all right, you lose a land, you don't take damage, but it happens 3 times. So some damage is going to happen. So you're dealing this damage, people are taking this damage. Eventually, they're going to start letting you draw. And that's when you need the card draw the most. So at first, they think they're helping you by not letting you draw, but you don't need it. It's just dealing damage.
Yeah.
And then you get card draw. I love it. I mean, I play Sin Prodder, and Sin Prodder is this that happens 1 time. And this is happening 3 times. So I love it. I'm happy to see Mark liked it.
I am impressed with it, honestly. It's so much damage, especially in the deck that he plays it in, which is his Rakdos deck. So you're already getting beaten up. So more likely than not, like, it's very quickly you end up just wanting to give the cards away.
Yeah. He has that 15 mana black card in there. He's like, you want to take 15 damage? I like, no.
What was that, Shadow of Morality or something? I think it's from New
Yeah.
Capenna.
Yeah. Yeah, where it casts less equal to your life lost from original or something like that.
Yeah. And in
for
Commander,
15
it's
mana.
like, you cast it for like 2 or
Yeah. Literally, it's great. But, so
another comment I wanted to actually bring up while we're talking kind of about the Rakdos decks is that we ended up playing a more high power game. Definitely nothing like CDH, but we ended up playing like what we would consider maybe our best decks or most powerful, what have you. And Mark played his Rakdos deck, and I have to say, like, it is very surprising when you're playing like greedy mana bases like Ancient Tombs and you're shocking yourself to get colors on time and whatnot, how sneaky incidental damage every turn is. And the Rakdos deck ended up winning that game. And I wouldn't say it's like as powerful as like the foiled out Marin deck, but it's still through attacking at an avenue that high powered decks aren't normally ready to handle, because that's not what other high power decks tend to do. It's interesting how like this newcomer can kind of like scoop a win out of nowhere.
Yeah. And I played Rowan against that, and I was kind of confident because I thought to myself, this deck is going to help me lose life, which is what I want. But it made me lose life so quickly that before I got set up, I was already at such a low life I couldn't pay in to do anything with Rowan. So I walked in very confident, and actually I ended up getting burned by Rakdos. So
As is the way.
that's like my third like really lame pun. I gotta say.
No, we gotta keep it going. Keep it going.
Oh my god. But yeah, the Rakdos definitely, it whooped all of us when we went in there thinking we were going to be good. Well, okay, so for your Joda, that was the slowest I'd ever seen your Joda go. But I learned you get Karuga out first, or a Giganta.
Yeah.
And then use Giganta to get him out, and then cast everything else with your mana. So I've learned that. So I've learned now, kill Giganta if possible. And that did help slow you down significantly.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it didn't hit any rocks and stuff. I mean, I think Joda is very high powered in terms of like casual tables, just because like it's so much value stapled on a card. But I don't think like that's exactly the reason why it's not necessarily a CEDH caliber commander, because you do need that boost to get to 5 colors, and then additionally then start casting things afterwards. So unless you're doing it turn like 3, maybe 4, like, then everyone starts to not really worry about you too much.
Yeah, that's fair. Because there's nothing in it that is inherently super powerful. It just synergizes well, and it comes on like a tsunami, where just before you know it, you're just not stopping it. So I love that deck dearly. Don't break that one up. Yeah. All right. Talking of tsunami decks, Emoti.
Yeah.
I played Emoti was my other new deck. It's my Simic deck, and let me read here what we got. It's Emoti, Celebrant of Bounty, 3 green white, 3/1 with Cascade. but it also says spells with CMC 6 or greater also have Cascade. And I built it with Karuga as the companion, which is a 5 mana. When it enters, draw a card for each permanent with CMC 3 or greater. But in order to be there, you can't have anything less than 3 CMC to be in the deck. So it's ultimately a bunch of big stuff, a bunch of ramp, and at some point you start cascading into things. And if you run out, you cast Karuga to draw more, to keep on cascading. It was as Simic, textbook Simic as I could have asked for. It was amazing. So yeah, it's Simic stuff. But what I wanted to talk about is the synergy with Virtue of Strength and Heartbeat of Springs, which you brought up to my attention. So if anyone doesn't know, there's a few ways to double mana. And we say double mana as a shorthand. But Dictate of Karamektra and Heartbeat of Springs are both enchantments that say whenever a player taps a land for mana, that player adds 1 mana of any type that land produces. Then Virtue of Strength says, if you tap a basic land for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. So I thought, I have all 3 out. If I tap a land, Heartbeat of Spring and Dictate each give me a mana, making 3 mana. And then Virtue of Strength says, you're getting 9 mana because we're going to triple it. So that's how I took a turn, tapping for 9 mana each. Joel looked into it and confirms the land tapping is only still producing 1. That gets tripled to 3. And then you get those 2 additional on top because they're not saying the land tapping produces it. So it's only 5 mana. Still an incredible amount of mana, but not 9 mana, which is very important when you're trying to cast Apex Devastators and stuff like that. So I was very interested about that, and I'm curious if it's worth taking anything out. So.
Yeah, and then I'm not sure if that interacts with Wild Growth the same way.
What's Wild Growth?
Wild Growth is the 1 mana, 1 green mana enchantment, enchant land. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green.
Yeah.
Because isn't that the same wording as what you...
Yeah, whenever it's tapped, it's going to add an addition. Oh, no, that's different wording. Because I'm pretty sure this says that player adds 1 mana to his or her mana pool of any type that land produced. But that land doesn't actually produce that land. So that's where we need to see is that land producing it or not?
Oh, yeah, it does not. Okay, so I just... Hey, if you go to Gatherer, there's rulings for cards, it turns out. Just found that out. But one of the rules specifically says, if an ability triggers whenever you tap a basic land for mana and produces mana, that triggered mana ability won't be affected by Virtue of Strength.
Perfect. As clear as it gets. So I already want to take out that card, Virtue of Strength, because it only does basic lands. But now that I know it doesn't stack with any of my others, I might be going.
I mean, yeah, it's not a bad cut. It's a 7 mana card, so if you replace that with anything less, you're lowering the curve a little bit. It'll probably be ultimately better for you anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to practice with Emoti. I got very overwhelmed. I don't know how to handle it.
I mean, you're playing Simic, doing Simic stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, not my play style. I have to legitimately look in a mirror and practice that out a little bit because it was embarrassing how much I was slogging through and messing it up. My bad.
Those are my favorite kinds of decks. I like decks that take a lot of actions.
Yeah, but as long as it's progressing, though, because I felt like there was some turns where I did a lot of stuff just to get some creatures out that I knew were going to get board wiped. You know, like I don't know. I gotta figure that out. I had so much choice, but I don't know. That's why I broke up Rashmi. So I gotta search my soul and see if this is one I'm gonna commit with. Anything else?
I forgot you had Rashmi. I also built Rashmi at one point too, as just like a bells and whistle commander.
Yeah.
which just like ran like Mind's Dilation and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you want to maximize your Simic, you run Rashmi, you run Videlkin Ori, Leyline of Anticipation, you run Seedborn Muse, and anything else that untaps your lands, and you just take your turn on everybody's turn, triggering Rashmi and getting your things. And I mean, that's the best way to do Simic. It's just, do you actually want to do that? That's the
The
question.
best way to do Simic is to every time you play a land, draw a card and gain a life or so.
Yeah.
Who's the
Yeah.
most popular? I'm gonna look up the most popular Simic commander. Take a guess of who that is.
I'm gonna say that Keenan or Kieran, that little
Kinnan?
land Kinnan.
Yeah, Bonder Prodigy.
Yeah. Or I don't know. You have it there? You're
Yeah, I'm
looking
ready.
at it?
Yeah, it's
Vanathar? Xanathar? Vanathar? Whatever.
number one by 1,000. Well, probably close to 800 decks is Isai, whatever. The Tyrant of Gyre Strait, the serpent creature. It's a 4 mana, 6 mana, 4 and Simic for a 5/5. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. That's it.
That's literally what you just said you gotta do.
9,000 decks. 9,000
my
decks.
God.
Second is
That
Kinnan,
makes
though.
sense. Okay. That sounds about right. I liked Tyler had built that Prime Speaker Xanathar or Vanathar.
Yes.
And he had me alter it as a Prime Rib.
I hope he still plays that. That's amazing.
It was one of my favorite alters I've ever done. Actually, I'm sure I can pull it up. I would like to show that out, but
I'm actually
So I'm gonna
also
pull that up.
surprised that while you're pulling that up is because I remember when that card was spoiled, everyone was like, "Oh, here's the new birthing pod, like birthing pod in the command zone. It's going to be insane." I saw a lot of people thinking it was just going to be like ultra dominant, and it only has just under 1,200 decks, so it's not even in the top 10 of Simic commanders.
I guess that makes sense. I don't know if he still plays it. I know that's what he was doing it to Birthing Pod, and for a while it was doing its thing. But at the end of the day, I think it's such a one-note commander that at some point you yourself get bored of playing it, you know? But
Emoti is above it actually with 3,400.
well, so I went in there to buy the cards, and he was saying he had pulled a serialized Emoti, so he had built Emoti also, so he has that. But all right, so I have this Prime Rib. I'm going to see if I can show it.
Oh,
my
yeah,
God,
you can see the prime rib.
Oh yeah, that's it.
See, guys, this is why you
But-
need a artist in your play group, because they
That's
can make a
it.
prime rib Benefar. The number of times I've read a card and I've said, "Oh, you should just make this into a burrito because it's Rito of the chosen ones." It's like,
Yeah,
burrito of the chosen ones.
And that's the best part about being able to alter stuff is when we come up with some silly stuff, I could just whip it up in a surprise, and
Yeah.
Atla Palani was definitely one of the best.
Well, that wasn't really a pun. That was a personal kind of alter there.
Yeah, I couldn't. The one time I played it, I took a little marker and I I crossed over the
You
little
covered
private
it out.
area when we
Well,
were in
because we
public.
played it in public.
Yeah. But if you want to check out all my alters, they are on Reddit. You go to Reddit and you look up for the username. So it's u/dr_Mike_blunts. And you can go check out all my alters. I have like 80 alters up there, and some of them are pretty wild. So go check them out.
It's a shame that Golos got banned, because Mike altered me a Golos as Thanos, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a Maze's End deck. I'm gonna have him collect Infinity Rings. It's cool and funny. Infinity Stones. Sorry, Marvel fans killing me. And then he got banned like a month later while I was like in the process of putting it together, and I was so sad.
Yes. And that came out so nice. That was one of my favorite altars I had done. And if you look on my Reddit, you see it without the background. I ended up adding a starry galactic background to it
Yeah, it's
also,
so
which,
good.
Yeah, out of control.
I
I
wish
love
they
it.
could have a rule of like, hey, you can play Golos if you're only trying to maze his end.
That's what I mean. So at the end of the day, I obviously our play group, we would rule 0 that you could play that.
Yeah,
But I know you personally will not build it if that's
no,
not gonna. Yeah,
I can't
I
bring
know.
myself to do that.
I know. The same way I would love to shove some silver borders into decks, but there's just some part of my soul that says that it's illegitimate. Then you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I totally get it. And like I understand that like Rule 0 exists to kind of like cover this sort of thing, but I don't know. It just feels weird not playing with like the official ban list and by the official rules and whatnot.
Yeah.
I
No,
understand.
I agree. The same way, like we allow proxies, but at the same time, there's very rarely a single proxy at our table.
Yeah,
You know?
I honestly I having gone through the decks that I've gone through, I don't have any proxies anymore. I saved them just in case I need them. It's like Cyclonic Rift and stuff, but I'm not going to run it if I don't have to. And then also it kind of promotes me to like run less Cyclonic Rifts for the sanity of my play group.
Yeah. Yeah, which is nice. As the play group, that is nice. Okay, great story about Cyclonic Rift, or at least with Cyclonic Rift involved. One of my best plays of the first night when it was with Joey and you and Mark, I was playing Will. So I was playing Will and the background for the clan, the dice roll deck. And I had a fat hand, and this was the last game of the night, and I was trying to get it finished. And I had a discard. So just out of like respect for the speed of the game, I discarded and like touted that I discarded a Force of Will and a Cyclonic Rift. So I'm like, look, guys, no Cyclonic Rift in hand. We're all good. Don't worry about it. Then it goes to Joey's turn, and he's playing dinosaurs. He's playing Gishath, and he has all of these dinosaurs out, and he casts Insurrection to take everyone's stuff and kill us all. And I cast a Mana Drain because that was also in my hand. I figured let me just leave a counterspell just in case. Cast Mana Drain, got 8 mana. It comes to my turn, and I cast with the mana that I got from it Wizard Spellbook, which is a 7 mana artifact that lets me tap to cast something from a graveyard. And I cast his Insurrection because I rolled a 19, which let me cast it for 1 mana, 1 generic. So like I cast his Insurrection, took all of his dinosaurs, and then killed everyone with his spell.
With the mana that his spell gave you.
Yeah. The mana that his spell gave me, the spell that I countered from him to kill him with his own creatures. It was fantastic. But like the whole time I'm touting, I'm like, oh, look how good I am. I got rid of the Cyclonic Rift. Nobody worry.
I mean, yeah, I just feel like my personal opinion is that once you're casting things for 7+ mana, like if you've gotten to the point where you have 7 mana to spend on things, like just send it all. Like I miss that, but like like Torment to Hailfire for like a ton. You know what I mean? Like if you have the mana, just go for it.
Yeah.
You should be expecting crazy things to happen. I don't really see much of a difference between all right, so I understand people get annoyed with how board wipe slowing down the game, but I just feel like you should come to expect it once you hit that level of mana. Someone's gonna play a Crater Hoof, someone's gonna play an Insurrection, which is a card that people don't even consider good anymore, but hey, wins games still, you know what I mean?
Heck yeah. No, definitely. And that's how we get 7 games in. Is we really are all trying to end the game, and no matter how it happens, like you could get full decimated, which is a joke in our play group, but like someone can cast Decimate and hit everything on you, and for the most part, none of us are ever getting salty. Like we really do have a great outlook when we're playing, to where even if the worst thing, you get knocked out turn 4, and there's like whatever bad beats happens, we're always there for the good time, which is a great thing to have in a play group.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Also, hot take 2024 is that Mana Drain is a good card.
Spell Swindle, baby. Spell Swindle is so good. I'll pay the extra mana.
The 5 mana.
You get those treasures right away. That was good. Cast it in a Modi. It did well. So while we're talking about Joey, my favorite deck from Joey is definitely his mill deck. I think he's now gotten so sneaky with that deck that he can nail us out when he normally has like a big 38 on the battlefield that we're all worried about, and then he finds a way to still just mill us out when we're worried about damage. I love that deck. But his Gishath deck has gotten to be an actual problem now.
Yeah, Ixalan definitely juiced dinos, for sure.
Man. Yeah. He was playing, there was those 2 new dinos that he has. One of them is the Hulking something, which has the ward 2 and it produces 2 mana, 5/3. That's giving a dinosaur deck 2 mana while also having a 5 power creature that also has ward 2 is very powerful. There was also that other dinosaur. Again, I got no names here. I'm just shooting them out. I remember doing stuff.
Dinosaurs, yes.
Whenever someone casted something that wasn't on their turn, this dinosaur dealt 4 damage to them.
Oh, yeah, it's red, mono red.
Oof. That really, it made me think about everything I was casting, because that 4 mana can add up. You do 2 things. You took almost 25% of your life. So just adding that sort of like little resource and tool into that deck made it even more lethal.
My MVP was the one that I thought was the most exciting for dinosaurs, not even playing them, but just to see it, was the 2 mana dinosaur that's a 3/2 that when a dinosaur enters play, it can get that power and toughness until the end of the turn.
Oh,
just because
yes.
I feel like I feel like it's a problem with a lot of tribes is that the top end is loaded with powerhouses, but then what do you do until you hit the critical amount of mana that you need to start doing Gishath or casting your big angels and stuff like that? And I like that Wizards have lately been adding like, here's some filler for like the lower mana curve kind of area, because Magic inevitably has been speeding up over time regardless of how you like build your decks. Like in general, bigger effects are happening at lower costs, and I'm glad to see that they're giving these like heavies something to cast that's relevant earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's that other one. It's green red. It's a legendary. It's called it starts with an I think. I don't know. But it's 2 mana, enters, and you can pay 2 mana to have a dinosaur you control fight something, which is another great thing. It has haste too. So it's like if you get it on turn 2, a dinosaur deck can play it, start dealing its damage. If you get it late, you can have a dinosaur fight something and you still have another dinosaur out. So you're right. They've done dinosaurs right, in where there are these lower CMC dinos that will not only work early, but not leave you disappointed if you draw it late game. It'll still do a dinosaur-sized effect to the battlefield. So it's good stuff. Dinos are definitely one of my most feared decks when we sit down to play. All right. Anything else about these Commander games that we've been playing?
No, just that I want to keep playing as much Commander as possible. I think it's the best format in my opinion. Obviously, it's not, it doesn't have the competitive nature to it for like tournament grinders and things, but in a time when people are moving away from like competitive paper form, I know CDH exists, but in general. It's just I like it as a just Commander's a great social format, and it's nice to get together and play cards with the boys. You know, they used to play poker. Now you can play Commander.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I really do. I appreciate the gathering, and we sit here, we talk about all the cards, but peppered in every one of these conversations is more about the experiences we're having with who we're sitting down with, more than what we're actually casting. And they go together; they're synonymous, but you can't have one without the other. So you have to have the friends to play with, and I love it. I love Commander. That's really what it's all about, And then you dunk on them with some cool cards you also bought at the same time.
Yeah.
No, it's been good. Hopefully we play tomorrow. I'm gonna go ask the wife. I have a basketball practice to go to in a little bit, and then while we're there, I'll see if
broach the
we can
topic.
play. Yeah. Do we have a full four? Do we have anyone else we could join?
I'm gonna reach out to the. I'll call the bannerman to see who can come and play, but hopefully somebody.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. So Cody did get back to me. I had invited him to play that day, and he's dying to play actually. So
Really?
Yeah. He's not a phone person. He missed the message, but he said he would love to come play. So
good. I'll save Will for that game.
Yes, let's get our blue on.
I was gonna say, yeah, like if he's gonna sit and play Azurius, I will also sit and play Azurius.
Was it Kaikar? Kaikar is his deck.
Yeah.
Cody's my brother-in-law. He's been playing forever.
Soon to be my brother-in-law.
Yes. And he fell off for a little bit. He still plays on Arena and this and that, but not so much the Commander. But when we would play with him, his favorite color is blue. He's a tight player, and it's always an uphill battle. So it'll be awesome to get him in our arena and see if we could get out of it. Good times.
Good times.
Anyway, man, listen, this is a great start to a good year. 2024 should be full of merry Mander games. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
We'll see you all next week
On Brewing Through the Multiverse.
Cheers, guys.